Welcome, everybody, to another episode of One More Entry, your new spot for daily fantasy insight and strategy. I'm your host, Leonard Beal, and with me today is Kyle Bullpit.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Doing great. Now, if you listen to our first episode, you notice we're missing a person. We're missing Cody Garza. Unfortunately, he is having a girlfriend bae kind of weekend, and I'm not hating on that. He is missing out on a chance to talk about winning $1 million, but hey, you got to get your time in with your girl. Completely understand that. He will be with us next week, so don't worry. You'll get his insight as well. But for now, it'll just be us two. So grab your notebook, grab your iPhone, your iPad, whatever. Get ready for some awesome notes because we about to make some money. All right, so let's start off with the best way to make money, and that's our cash games. If you are new to DFS, I'm sure all the amazing tournaments, the Millie Maker, the $100,000 for first place is the most appealing thing for you. And it should be because that is awesome. But if you want to actually consistently make money and be able to play a lot of tournaments over the weeks, you need to get into a lot of the cash games. And by cash games, we mean the 50-50s, double ups, triple ups. If you're feeling ballsy, the quadruple ups. These are the things that are going to make you money, make your bankroll increase. So a lot of talk we'll do is with the cash games because that's how we stay competitive. That's how we stay at the top. So I have a couple cash game picks right here, and I'm kind of throwing a little curveball. Both of mine are tight ends. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but this is one of the weeks where DraftKings has made tight ends like one of the best commodities you can do as far as value and for paying up. And I'm going to start off with just a simple one, Zach Ertz for $5,000. He's had 9 targets a game. He is the safety blanket for Carson Wentz. They have probably had the best chemistry on the team. He's been there since he's been there, and they're going up against the Giants, who have been historically horrible against the tight end. They let Eric Ebron go off for a touchdown, plus 5 receptions, plus 50 yards in receiving. Like, Zach Ertz is in a prime spot to build up off what everything he's had. And only at 5,000, he's right there at that average that you can still pay up for a lot of people. And then on top of that, my next cash game pick is Jack Doyle, another tight end for the Colts at only 3,600. So he's actually 1,400 less than Ertz. But personally, I think he has the exact same ceiling as Ertz. So if you looked at week 1, I think he got like 1 catch for 8 yards, just some straight bullshit. But last week when the Colts started Jacoby Brissett, he got 9 targets. He showed his versatility that he had previous year. Even when Dwayne Allen was the starting tight end, he was still one of the biggest and best targets for Andrew Luck. And now finally that Scott Solzine is back on second string practice squad, where the fuck he's at. Jack Doyle has a chance to sign again, and at 3,600, he's so hard to pass up. You can build anyone around him. So right there, those are my 2 cash game picks. You got to put them in. If you want to play Zach Ertz at tight end, put Jack Doyle at flex and have enough money for these amazing running backs we have in this slate. That is a smart-ass move, okay? What are you feeling, Kyle?
Yeah, I like that idea. That's actually something in some of my lineup constructions I've done is like I've put the tight end at both, obviously, the tight end position and then also thrown him in as the flex. And that's typically something I really try to stay away from. But with how the pricing went with DK this weekend, it's just really hard to just find value all across the board. There's not a huge amount of wide receivers and running backs at those lower prices that give you that value that you need. So really turning to the tight end, I think, is a great move this week. I do like both those picks. I actually have both of them written down on my piece of paper here. So I'm going to try to stay away from those and maybe look at some other players that are a little less going to be a little less owned. One, I talked about this guy last week in our kind of first demo podcast, but another guy I like is Zach Miller.
Ooh,
he
okay.
is one of Mike Glennon's top targets. Last week he had 9 targets. He caught 6 receptions. Kind of downfall there was he only had 42 yards, but if you look at his points per dollar, he still was a great value play. With something good for cash, especially if you're trying to pay up at this week you can pay up at the quarterback, the receiver, and the running back position. Miller at 3,000 I think is a good place where you can find some value for cheap, and then come in with your flex play with Doyle for 3,600, and that's 2 spots right there at 6,600, we are most likely paying most of your other players more than that for just one person. So I think Miller could be another good target this week. He is going up against Pittsburgh, whose defense has shown to be a lot better this year than they have kind of last year. But I still think he's going to be a good play because he's one of those guys that's going to get the targets. You're just hoping he can pull those in for some yardage and maybe find himself in the red zone. Another guy I like, and this ties with one of the highest scoring games of the week, that's going to be the Raiders and Redskins game, is Jared Cook at tight end. Let me pull up his price right here. He's also at 3,100, so he's another cheap player. The one issue I have with him that maybe makes him not a cash player, because my main cash guys, you've already hit on them, are going to be Ertz and Doyle. So I'm kind of now trying to reach for some other players that are still viable in cash. Mm-hmm. And I think Jared Cook's one of them. The only problem with him is, who is Derek Carr going to throw the ball to? I mean, he has so many options. There's so many good players. So you're just really hoping that this game turns out to be a shootout, a high scoring, and that Jared Cook can serve the targets and maybe find himself in the end zone as well. Those, besides the two you went over, those are two that I really like for that position. But then outside of that, looking at like other positions besides tight end, if DeMarco Murray is injured for the Titans, I think Derrick Henry would be a great play. Last week, he's already showing that he is commanding more of the market share, even with DeMarco not hurt. And if DeMarco's out for this game, I haven't seen any injury reports. As you know, I'm in Louisiana this weekend, so I haven't looked at the injury reports yesterday. I think he could be a great play. I think he'll be in most of my cash lineups, be 80-90% of my cash lineups. So that's another play I really like, and he's only 5,300. I think that's a great play. If he becomes a more feature back with DeMarco out, I think next week his price is going to jump by at least 1,000 based off the price hikes you've seen from some of these other players. And then another guy is also another guy I hit on last week, and I'm going to continue riding him. That's Keenan Allen. He got 10 targets last week for about 100 yards. He is one of Phillip Rivers. He is Phillip Rivers' favorite target, and with DraftKings being PPR, I think he's a great play. The only thing is he's probably not going to find the end zone, so you're just hoping that he still gets his 10 to 12 to even 15 targets and can haul those in for another almost 100-yard game, maybe make it a 100-yard game to get that 3-point bonus. But besides that, I do have one more that I want to talk about. Normally, when we talk about cash players, we don't really bring up defenses. But with the news of Sam Bradford being out, I think the Bucs D at 3,200 is a great play. I know this week it's kind of hard to find value in some of the defenses, because especially with Denver being 3,600, the Seahawks being high priced. I think the Bucs D at 3,200 can save you $400. And like I said, this week is going to be hard to find value to get all of those high priced guys in your league. So saving 100 to 200 here and there can really pay off. That's why I like the Bucs D this week, especially with no Sam Bradford.
You are speaking magic right now. I hope y'all took notes right there, because Kyle just gave y'all essentially half a cash lineup. I think it's definitely on the Derrick Henry train. I think after this year, even if DeMarco still has a very good year, which I still see happening, I don't think the Titans have a reason to re-sign him. They got a younger back, a bigger back, a back that fits more the resemblance of they want to be kind of like a power I team while still having Mariota to spread it out if they need to. So Derrick Henry is at a buy low type setting. And as far as the two tight ends, this will probably be there's 4 tight ends. We mentioned 4 tight ends basically for a cash game. This will probably be the only time for the next 16 weeks you'll ever hear us or anybody else that talks about DFS recommend 4 tight ends for a cash game. So definitely take advantage of that. The Bucs defense, I am on that for sure. My cash game defense is the Eagles. That's a little biased, but they're going up against Eli Manning. That's
the shell of Eli Manning is who they're going against.
Yes, the shell of the ghost of the shell, the person who thought he was Eli Manning. So that's mine, but I really think the Eagles defense is going to be a lot higher owned. So pivoting towards the Bucs is a good call. So good job right there.
I think another guy, real quick, before we jump over into a different section, like everybody is talking about Jay Ajayi, and he, I think, is an automatic cash player.
Absolutely.
I think he's too easy to pick. That's why I wanted to talk about somebody outside of him. I mean, like, before we jump too far ahead, lock in Jai, like play him for cash. I think that's a great play. I just wanted to try to find other players that would be good cash players outside of Jai, because if you follow any DFS resource, the number one cash player this week is Jai. And I'm not saying I'm not on him, because I am. I just wanted to look for a different direction, some other players for cash lineups.
Right, absolutely. Jay, that was too easy to pick. If you watch at all any football or anything, you would know, like, this is his week. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. So, and going against the Jets, I mean, he's an automatic starter.
Oh, 100%. That game script is just begging for him to run the ball. Like, if the Jets get an early lead, I'm gonna quit DFS. That's because I don't see. This is just the perfect game for him. This is what he's built for, especially with Jay Cutler showing he doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about him. He'll still air it out. So I see a quick lead building, and then Jay just doing what he does.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yep. So hope y'all took some notes right there. Now let's get into a new section we're gonna do every second podcast of the week, and that's our Marquette King section. So if you don't know who that is, he is a punter, and these are punt plays. So basically what a punt play is it's a very cheap player, a value player, but at the same time, it's also somebody who's probably going to be pivoted against. Not many people are going to own him because, like most players that play DFS, they really don't know football past what they see on ESPN or NFL Network. So this is why we call it a punt play, because these are people that you're going to be like, what the fuck? Why didn't I think of them? So Kyle and I are going to go back and forth through quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and defense and give our punt plays. And I'll start at quarterback, and I'm going to be super biased because, we coming from the H right now, Houston, Texas, and I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson at 4,700. Now, Houston is playing the Patriots, so of course Houston's going to lose. Sorry, all Texan fans. If you think you had any hope of winning this game, you're delusional. You're probably smoking too much, probably a little drunk right now. It's okay, though. That doesn't mean Deshaun Watson's not a bad play at all. At 4,700, he saves you a lot of money for all the great running backs and receivers you can pay up for. And being in a game that they are going to be losing by a lot, he's expected to play catch-up mode. So he's going to be throwing the ball a lot in the third and fourth quarter, and he also has that dynamic of running. So think Blake Bortles of last year plus running a 4.5. Okay, so I think right there is a great spot. You can play him in any tournaments you want. He has a chance if he gets 17 to 21 points, he's easily made his value right there. What do you think, Kyle?
I like that play. Just because I'm a fan and I try not to like double dip in how I'm rooting for games, I probably am going to stay away from the Texans, and that's just my own personal thing. Is I don't want to see them do bad on TV and then know I played them in DFS, and if they do bad there as well, then I'm kind of double screwed. But I do like that play. I do completely agree that I think they're going to be playing catch up, and I do think he's going to put up some points. I think he's going to get a lot of points again with his legs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously we all know that he's going to be targeting Hopkins, whether that turns into Hopkins with a high efficiency or Hopkins with a 50% efficiency. We know that's where he's headed. I do like that play, and especially at 4,700, I mean, to get that value is not too difficult. I mean, if he can put up some yardage through the air and through his legs, maybe run or throw a TD in, you're going to easily get the value for that play. So I do like that play. Somebody I'm looking at, and it's funny, you bring up the Texans, I'm going to bring up the Eagles because I know that your team. One player I'm looking at is Darren Sproles. I know historically you really don't want to touch backs. Just like this year, it's kind of like the Raiders. You just don't know who's going to get the ball and who's going to get the carries. But with Darren Sproles kind of emerging, he's a pass-catching back. He's also picking up more just straight attempts with a single attempt last week. I think we're starting to see Darren Sproles, the veteran, become more and more of a key player in that backfield. So he's a player I like, and especially at 3,900. If we can see him just like last week, average about 5 yards a carry for 50 yards and possibly find himself with 2 to 5 receptions, I think that could be a good player. I think he could really get his value at that cheap of a price, and that's somebody I'm really looking at. I have already locked him into one of my GPP lineups, and just with his price tag, I'm probably gonna have to. He's probably gonna make his way into a few more.
Wow, Darren Sproles. Thank you, man. Thank you for shouting out my Eagles right there. I really appreciate the love. I know Philly appreciates the love. Man, that's a good one. I looked into it. Me personally, and I love the Eagles. I stayed away from their backfield, but looking at what Darren Sproles does and what he means to this offense, I can see him being one. If he's over 3% owned, and in the average of tournaments, then that's crazy. So Darren Sproles definitely is someone that can move you away from the crowd. Okay, if he happens to score as much as let's say 25% owned back around the same price, you'll get the edge because you're beating out all those people right there. So that's a very good pick right there.
And some of my resources that I use for projected ownership, he doesn't even make the list. So expect him to be a 1%, 2% max owned guy. I'm going to completely contradict what I just said about the Texans. I'm not saying I'm playing this guy. I just think if you want to look into this and if you want to play this guy at tight end, Ryan Griffin is back healthy. Let's put that in quotation mark. Healthy with the Texans. He's
quote unquote.
He's at $3,000 right now. I think that's another good position. There are some other tight ends that I like better at that same price, but if you want to take a real flyer, a guy that's going to be less than 1% owned, which Ryan Griffin is going to be, this could be your guy. We do know that Watson likes his tight ends. Last week was rough with all of them being injured, but you saw in week 1 that he was trying to find Fedorowicz a lot. He does like them in the red zone as well. Going back to even preseason, he likes his tight ends. I think that could be a good play. I think it's a complete punt play. He could get one catch for 8 yards, or he could have a great game where Watson checks down to him, or Watson just tries to find him as that safety net tight end that a lot of these young QBs look for. So that's another player. I may have him in one of my, just my kind of fun GPP $quarter dollar lineups, but I'm not going to have a lot of exposure to it. But I wouldn't blame you if you want to take a flyer on that for a really low-owned guy to try to give yourself that edge in some of these tournaments. He
has a chance to be the Jack Doyle of week 3. That's with young quarterbacks like here, they just need a little check down blanket for a couple yards. That's a ballsy play. I'm gonna have to throw him into one of mine.
And especially with Belichick, I mean, they're going to find a way to limit Hopkins. You've got to, where else is Watson going to go with the ball? I think Ryan Griffin at tight end could be that area.
Yep, I can definitely see that. And the Patriots defense, all right, they're going to win this game, and the score might look a little different, but the Patriots defense is not good this year. They lost their heart and soul Hightower this year. They have 2 amazing corners, but they don't have very much pass rush at all. Rob Ninkovich retired this past season. They thought Coney Ely was going to do anything, and they ended up cutting him. I mean, he was getting beat out by undrafted rookies this preseason. So don't be afraid of the Patriots defense. It's the Patriots offense that makes this game so bad. If the Patriots didn't have Tom Brady running the show, we'd be a lot more heavy on the Texans because they'd have a much higher chance to win this game by far. So another punt play while still staying on tight end, and this is crazy. We'll never talk about tight ends this much ever again. But like we said earlier, DraftKings really hoed us on the salaries. Like we saw, Tyreek Cohen went up $1,200 this week. Keenan Allen, who's still a great pick, went up $1,400. So
and I still don't high enough. I guess they still have him only in that 7,200 because of. He's not a red zone guy, but right. I still at 7,200. I'm playing Keenan Allen every single week.
Yes,
like that. I still think that's too cheap, especially with people like AJ Green being at 8,100. There's no way I'm not paying for Keenan Allen at 7,200. I still think that's a great play.
100%. Keenan Allen is Jarvis Landry, but actually gets yards. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't watch football, Jarvis Landry got 13 catches last week for, was it 84 yards? So he averaged his air yards. Our last podcast, we talked about air yards and how far the ball travels from the quarterback to the receiver. Jarvis Landry averaged like 1.8 air yards. So he basically just caught the ball at the line of scrimmage for 13 receptions. Keenan Allen gets 13 receptions, but actually, hits triple digits in receiving yards. It is a travesty they only have him at 7,200.
Hey, that helps us out. That's one place that you can save a little bit of money when you're trying to pay up for some other players as well.
Yep, we're going to take advantage of that for sure. Circling back around to another one of my punt plays, that's Cameron Brate, the tight end for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Coming in at 3,000, he's a little bit cheaper than Jack Doyle, right there around Zach Miller. He is the starting tight end for the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Tampa Bay Bucks have a high-flying offense. They have an amazing quarterback, Jameis Winston. I know he makes a lot of mistakes, but he's proven to throw the ball, sling the ball around. Last week, Brate only got 2 targets, 1 catch. That's because they were in a blowout win. There's no reason. Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson, they barely played like the second half. They barely got any targets. They just ran the ball out. This week, going up against a lot harder matchup with the Vikings defense and Xavier Rhodes being on Mike Evans, I think Cameron Brate's going to see a lot more red zone targets, okay? And with your tight ends, that's what you want to see. You want to see red zone targets. It's cool for them to get a lot of yards, but at the end of the day, they make their value catching a touchdown. So if he has the same kind of game like Zach Miller, where he gets 3 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown, that's perfect value right there because there's not a chance he's owned more than 12% this week in any tournaments around there. That's another great play that you can take advantage of, pivot away from people going on your Zach Ertz, your Jack Doyles, your Travis Kelce this week.
Yeah, I like that play. I do think I'm pretty sure you're high on him as well, but D-Jax is another guy that's going to look
that's my boy.
I'm pretty sure you probably have him as one of your talking points at some point in this podcast, so I'll leave you to that. But another wide receiver that I like, this is another going to probably be a high-scoring game with the Detroit Lions and the Falcons, is Marvin Jones. Right now they have him at 4,200, and a lot of that is depending on the fact that he's only getting a few targets and a few receptions, but he has a touchdown in both games this season. That's really the only reason he's getting value at even the 4,200 is because he's been able to get a TD in each of his games. Hopefully playing the Falcons, not as great, should be a high-scoring game that he's able to get more targets and pull those in for a better efficiency and have more receptions. Obviously, we'd want him to find the end zone again, but I'm looking to him to have a better, more well-rounded game over this 1 and 2 receptions in the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah, Marvin Jones is at 4,200. He's
a better player than 4,200.
100%. He might be the value pick of this whole week because last game he got 5 targets, only 1 catch. For that catch was a 27-yard touchdown. But Matthew Stafford only threw it 21 times.
Yeah,
they didn't need to throw it.
And that second half, they just did not throw the ball, and that just kind of hurt all fantasy value for those receivers.
Right, exactly. But I agree with you. Them at home against the Falcons offense that is elite, it should set him up for a lot more catches. And that Falcons defense, I know they did good against Green Bay, but did they do good against Green Bay? I think it's more Green Bay's first half offensive play calling was just piss poor. I don't know what they were thinking. You saw in that little kind of comeback situation at the end that they started moving the ball, and I really think this is the best I've seen Matthew Stafford. These first 2 games in the second half of last season.
That contract, baby. It's that contract.
Yeah. That money made him do it. So yeah. I really see Marvin Jones after this week bumping up to the 5s. So.
Yeah, I could easily see him taking a 1,000 to 1,500 spike after this week. I would not be surprised.
The great spot to buy low. Great spot to buy low. You know who else is a great spot to buy low? Deshaun Jackson. So in our mock podcast that we didn't release, I was super high on Deshaun Jackson at 4,900. He was my cash play, telling Cody and Kyle, this is who you got to play. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Well, that game he got 7 targets, but only caught 3 balls for 36 yards. So kind of shit the bed. Got 39 yards. I'm sorry. Got 6.9 points. They're all making fun of me. Whatever. DraftKings was making fun of me. That's why they dropped him $300 lower. So he's coming in at 4,600 after averaging 7 targets, after getting 7 targets last week in a blowout game. Now they're going up against the Vikings defense. That is a defense that you shouldn't take lightly. They have Xavier Rhodes, and this is what makes Deshaun Jackson great right now. They have Xavier Rhodes, who's going to be on Mike Evans, and then they have the 84th ranked corner up against Deshaun Jackson. So for 4,600, if Deshaun catches one 58-yard pass for a touchdown, he's basically made his value. I think he's going to be pretty low owned. I've heard a lot of people wanting to fade this game just simply because that Vikings defense. I think this is a perfect chance to take advantage of the D-Jack. This is an opportunity to buy low, just like Marvin Jones.
Yeah, looking at probably the top 50 wide receivers in the league, projected ownership of Deshaun Jackson is right in the middle. He's not going to be low owned. He's not going to be high owned for some of the reasons you've hit on. So I do think he's a great play. I think I'm going to stick to him in just GPP. What do you think about putting him in any cash games?
No, I learned my lesson. Yeah. I'm not that stupid. He's my boy, but no.
I do know Winston and Evans, they have good chemistry, but Xavier Rhodes is going to damper some of that. So I do think Winston's going to have to reach out and try to target Deshaun Jackson in this game. So I do like that pick as well.
Right. And he can try to force – he's going to try to force feed Mike Evans because that's just what happens. But Xavier Rhodes is one of the more physical corners in the league, so he's built for receivers like Mike Evans. Like those are the matchups he likes to play against, someone that's not too fast, that's lengthy, that he can just body. So I'm hoping Winston is smart enough to be like, let me target this fifth-string corner and my receiver that runs a 4-2.
Yeah,
that's what I'm betting on right there. I don't know why we skipped over this guy. And actually, we haven't skipped over this game. We've been kind of talking a lot about one person from this game, and that was Jack Doyle in the Colts and Browns games. But flipping over to the other side, huge, what I think is going to be from people who do a lot of fantasy, they're going to have him probably in about 30% of their lineups, is Isaiah Correll for 4,800 for the Browns. So he is actually not a shitty player. He just plays for the worst franchise in football historically, okay? But at 4,800 in a game where it's probably going to be two really bad defenses going up against each other, this is his time to shine. He actually averages half a point per touch he gets, okay? Now, that may not seem like a lot, but if you take Ezekiel Elliott last week, he got what? I think 12 touches and 6 points, okay? And he's an elite running back. So the if not top 3 running backs in the league was averaging half a point. Someone who's more than half his salary is going to get 40 for 4,800. Is going to get that against the second worst defense, if not the worst defense in the league. He's definitely someone you can take advantage of. And he just told the coach that he wants the ball more, and the coach publicly said, "We're going to give you the ball more."
Yeah, and I've heard some things that Hugh Jackson is not normally a guy that kind of tries to trick the media and trick the general listeners. He's a guy, when he says something, he kind of sticks with it. So I do like that play. I actually have Isaiah Crowell, and I have started him in my season-long league. Ooh. He's been on my bench for the first 2 weeks, but I have him playing. So I do like that pick as well. And kind of on the other end of that game, another guy that, I'm just waiting for this guy to have a breakout game. He's a good receiver. I think what's hurt him, let me jump to who I'm talking about, is T.Y. Hilton. I think what's hurt him so far is obviously week 1 playing with Scott Tolzien. There's not really much he could do when that's who his quarterback is. But now with Jacoby Brissett, as the weeks go on, Jacoby Brissett and him will build that chemistry, get better and better each week. So I do think one of these weeks Hilton is going to have a breakout game like he can have. He's a great number 1 receiver that's right now priced at 5,200. This is a time to buy cheap. I'm not saying play this guy in cash. I'm not saying play this guy in 75% of your lineups. But take a flyer on him in a few of your GPPs, and one of these weeks, I think he's going to have that big breakout game. And mark my words, he might be one of the players in the Millionaire Maker in the winning lineup.
Oh, yeah. T.Y. led the league in yards last year. He just, like you said, Scott, whatever his last name is, was his starting quarterback. Week 1. He definitely is in a good buy low situation. I'm going to throw him in a couple GPPs this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does shitty again this week, goes a little bit lower, and then just balls out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see that as well. I mean, looking at his first 2 weeks, he's still getting 6 to 7 targets. He's catching about half those passes for yardage of 49 and 57 yards. So you're still getting some points for him. You're getting 2 times his salary, so that's 2 times, so a little bit less than 2 times. So he hasn't been the greatest for fantasy, but I'm just waiting for him to have that breakout game. And so the chemistry builds with Brissett. I think this could be a good player going forward. He could return back to kind of what he looked like last year.
Yep. And it's like we both said, it's not his fault. He's still the same player. He just happens to be – he happens to have Jacoby Brissett or Scott, what his name is.
Saying that I'm considering, and I actually have some GPPs where I've stacked the Colts and Cleveland game. That just doesn't sound right as I say that.
Oh man, yeah, that caught me off guard real quick. That's a great stack. Jeez, that's also the last time you'll ever hear me say the Browns and Colts is a great stack for for anything.
Until Luck's back, and the only other time I'll say this is play all the Colts and then play the Colts defense and then just leave the Browns alone. That's the stack I'll give. when the world corrects itself for these two teams,
play the Colts defense. Oh man, oh boy, I'm gonna laugh the day the Colts defense is like worth 4,400, the number one defense. I probably won't be playing fantasy that week if that's the case. So, talking about the Colts Browns, how you doing that stack? Let's talk about some games to take advantage of. In particular, your favorite game to take advantage of. My favorite game, personally, and I have my most recent tournament lineup has 4 or 5 different players from this game in one lineup, and that's the Washington-Oakland game. So prior to this crazy ass Thursday night football game against the Rams 49ers, which went for over 75 points total, the Washington-Oakland game was the highest scoring game at a 50. Right now, it was 53 to start the week, but it's at a 55-point total. That is the Atlanta-Green Bay game of this week. There's so many options to take advantage of that game. Number one, starting off with the best receiver in that game, and that's Amari Cooper for $7,100. He's actually priced $300 lower than Michael Crabtree, and based off all the stats that I've read, he's going to not be seeing Josh Norman. So he actually plays, I think it was 87% of the time, on the opposite side of where Josh Norman normally plays, where his lineup is. So you won't have to worry about one of the best corners in the league guarding him. He'll be guarding Crabtree, so this is the time to get Cooper involved. But then you also got Derek Carr for $6,800. Amazing cash play right there. You know he's going to air the ball out. You got Kirk Cousins at $6,100, who is actually my number one cash quarterback. I think this is his week. The past 2 weeks, he has been putting up, putting up about anywhere from
13.
Yeah, so I was going to say 10 to 15 points right there. And if you watched football last year, you know Kirk Cousins is one of those quarterbacks that can put up 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on any given week. Okay, he was actually top 5 in just about every single stat that mattered as far as a quarterback goes last year. So this is a prime time for him to take advantage of a Raiders defense that isn't good. If you think the Raiders defense is good, get the fuck out of here. Okay, so this is a great spot for him. Stacking him with Pryor and or Crowder is also an amazing thing. Pryor's $5,900. He hasn't done his best yet, but at the same time, this is his first year with the quarterback, only down 2 games. If I watched the game the last 2 weeks and their chemistry looks a little bit better, I know the stats don't say it, but Pryor said this week, like this is his week, like this is the time to take advantage of. And Crowder with Jordan Reed possibly being out and Robert Kelly possibly being out, look for him to get a little bit more exposure as well as being very, very low owned compared to a lot of receivers around the 4,900 mark.
Yeah, I like that play. I think this week is similar to last week in that the 2 highest scoring games you can't fade. You just have to get a part of them. Like if you faded the Patriots and Saints game last week, I mean, I don't really know what you're doing. And I think this game is similar to that for this week. Like, you just can't fade these games. Like, you have to get some piece of them. And I think that's a great play. My actually number one cash QB is going to be Derek Carr. So we'll get to see how on Tuesday's recap podcast, we'll get to kind of compare and see how they did against each other.
Yep. They'll probably do like within 1 or 2 points of each other, honestly.
I do think they have very, very similar ceilings. I think Derek Carr's floor is higher, but you're saving money playing Cousins.
Yeah.
With similar ceilings and the likelihood of both of them getting up there in points, I do think that's a great play playing Cousins as the cheaper QB.
I was going to say either they're within 1 or 2 points or Cousins gets like minus 15 points to Carr. You know.
Yeah. I still like that pick, and I like talking about the games to take advantage of. I think this is a great one. You have to get a piece of the Detroit-Atlanta.
Yep.
I think one kind of looking for some other games that are going to be lower owned. I already hit on this player earlier, Keenan Allen, but I'm looking at the Chargers-Chiefs game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of ownership for these two games because of the other games this week, and I think that's a place that you can find some value. One of the stacks I really like this week is Rivers-Allen. Rivers has shown that Allen's his top target. He's a guy he's going to try to feed the ball to a lot. So that's a game I'm trying to really get some action on. Last week, everybody was really high on Melvin Gordon, and then after putting up his atrocious yards per attempt, the only saving grace was his receptions and TD. I'm going to fade Melvin Gordon this week, really only look at the Rivers-Keenan Allen stack. But then if you're trying to say, okay, well, I want to game stack this game on the other end, paying up for him is fine because I still think he's a little undervalued. I wouldn't mind playing Kareem Hunt again for a third week in a row. I mean, who knows? This guy could have another great 2 TD game. Hopefully you don't need that 50-yard run to make him have value. Hopefully he gets more of a normal workload, normal yardage, normal yards per attempt. So that's another guy I don't mind playing. I don't mind playing Tyreek Hill again. I know he burnt me last week in a lot of my lineups, but he's still another player. He's going to get the volume. I think this game is going to have a higher score than a lot of people are thinking. So I do think that where is Kansas City going to find their score? It's going to be Kelsey, Hill, and Kareem Hunt. So just take your pick at the one you like. 6,900 for Kelsey is a little expensive, or 6,900. Let me double check that number. Yeah, 6,000. Sorry, I think that's a little expensive when there's a lot of tight ends you can pay down for. So I'm probably going to stay away from that one and look more at the Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill play. But of course, I'm going to have a lot of the Rivers Allen stack. That's a game I really like outside of the games where you have to play. You know, your Detroit, Atlanta, your Raiders and Redskins. The other one that I'm kind of scratching my head about, though, is the New Orleans Panthers game. Last week, everybody was, it doesn't matter who you're playing, just play whoever it is against New Orleans. The fact with Cam not playing that well this year, he's still looking rusty. He's not using his feet as much to get him some fantasy value. I'm struggling to play that game. I mean, one guy I like is McCaffrey. He's going to get the attempts. He's going to get the pass catching. He's the pass catching back. He's going to get those yardage and PPR points as well. But besides that, I'm not really sure if this is a game I want a lot of. I know it's supposed to have – it's got one of the higher scores, and you're supposed to play everybody against New Orleans. And a lot of people are thinking, whoa, well, is this where Cam turns it around? Is this his breakout game? I just don't know if that's happening. I just don't think he's looked that great. I'm going to actually let him burn me before I start playing him again. The only guy I'm really looking at in this game is McCaffrey. But overall, as a total game, I'm really staying away from this one.
Right. I completely agree with you right there. I need Cam to show me that he is Cam from 2015, not Cam from the last year and 2 games this season. The only person I would choose from that game is McCaffrey. If there's going to be a spot that he can explode and take advantage of, it would be this game against the New Orleans Division III defense.
Yeah, and especially with Cam Newton being 6,600. I mean, Derek Carr is $200 more. Phillip Rivers is $200 less. Like, I'm taking Carr and Rivers in right now way higher than I'm taking Newton. So that's an easy fade. That's an easy fade for me. Granted, Cam Newton could bust out and have an amazing game like people do against New Orleans, but I'm just going to stay away from it. The only thing I might touch is like we've talked about outside of the podcast. I just play just for fun quarter games where all of those players that I don't really like, but I just want to say, okay, let me see how this guy's going to do. I throw him in the quarter lineups. That's the only place I might have some Cam Newton, but I'm not going to have him in any of my serious constructed
Not
lineups.
at all. Not at all. He can burn me all he wants for that exact reason. His price point is just too much. And what made Cam such an amazing fantasy quarterback, was the fact that he was expected to run the ball at least 10 times. Anytime they were within the 5-yard line.
Yeah, he was the guy that was going to punch it in.
Exactly. He was the running back to punch it in. So I'm gonna fade him for a long time. One person though, and I have him in a couple of lineups. Just want to make y'all aware. Take it or leave it how you want. Is Devin Funchess, 4,300. He is the big lanky receiver for the Panthers. With Greg Olsen going down, he's expected to get more of the touches, more of the pass receptions. Cam loves throwing to his big receivers. But at the same time, I really think that this is Christian McCaffrey's game. If there's any game that the coaching staff could see him take advantage of, it would be this game.
And another thing with kind of looking at the game script of this game, what makes me nervous is, let's say Cam and them get up to an early lead. They're going to start feeding Jonathan Stewart the ball. They're just going to try to beat down that clock. I don't think with Cam's lingering injuries, or maybe not injuries, but just lingering overall health, I don't think they're going to try to make him do too much. So if they get a lead, I could easily see even McCaffrey's value going down for them to just run the clock down and just feed Jonathan Stewart the ball.
And nobody wants that. Yeah. Nobody wants that.
That's not good for anybody's fantasy team because nobody is playing Jonathan Stewart.
No, and if you are, you're a dick. That's what it is. But
you're betting against everybody.
Yes, exactly. You're that asshole of all your friends, and we can all see it. But the first game you said take advantage of, which is great for multiple reasons. The Kansas City Chargers game. One, everyone is going to be on that Washington-Oakland game, which, by the way, is the late game. So just like last week, if you don't get a piece of that game and you've maxed out all your players, you're going to start dropping down in your rankings as soon as that game starts. That's why we're saying take advantage of it. Stack that game if you can. So the Chargers-Chiefs games is an afternoon game. So it kind of has that same principle that you want to take advantage of it, because people that do nothing but noon players, they're going to start dropping down in rankings as that game goes on. And this is a game that is going to be a lot less owned and targeted, minus really just Keenan Allen. I don't see very many people being that high owned. Kareem Hunt, from what I've read and what I've seen, for 8,000 being the second price back in this week. A lot of people are thinking to fade him for, Jay Ajayi, like we just talked about, Ty Montgomery, Devontae Freeman. So Kareem Hunt I'm playing him. He's one of my cash picks, a lot of my cash lineups this week. I think he's definitely worth it. A lot of people were stressing about his workload, only averaging 19 touches. Well, that's because he's only need 19 touches for them to win. I think if they need to look more into winning, if they need him to get more ball, to get more catches, to get more touches, they're going to give him the ball more. And I think him and, like you said, Tyreek Hill are a lot better picks than spending up at Travis Kelce. We've given you guys like six fucking tight ends to take advantage of that are below Travis Kelce's 6,000 price point. So take advantage of that. Pay up for somebody like Kareem Hunt and fade Melvin Gordon. If he burns me, whatever. Nothing in his stats and his matchup says to play him. If you want to play him and just be a dick, you can play him.
You want to play him to be contrarian, I understand that, but he's not a guy that I'm playing any of this week.
Exactly. He is in 0-1. He's in my year-long fantasy, and I don't care if he does bad. Whatever. I'm still going to win my year-long fantasy.
Yeah, it's a struggle doing a lot of DFS and having year-long as well. There's so many contradicting players. So, like, what I've already done, it's week 3, and I've already started to pay, like, less and less attention to my year-long teams.
Right. It doesn't – that's not going to make you money every week. You're going to win you're going to win a decent, sizable sum in 16 weeks that you can win in one lineup.
Throughout the year.
In one lineup, in one more entry, you can win that same thing. 16 weeks or 1 week. I'm going to take the 1 week for sure.
Oh, yeah. Any day of the week.
Absolutely. So let's get into the end part of our podcast, call it section, take it or leave it. This is basically where we're going to take a player that we are in love with, and then we're going to leave one on the bench, on the bus, get out of here, go home. Talking about that Chargers-Kansas City game, I'm definitely taking Tyreek Hill. Now, he did burn me last week, just like you, but that's okay. I'm completely fine with it. I'm actually completely fine with him going up from $6,200 in salary to $6,600. One, that tells me that DraftKings algorithm has seen something in his matchup this week that he warrants going up $400 because he only got 5 touches last week. And being the most electrifying player on that Kansas City's offense, I find it hard to believe that Andy Reid is not going to give him the ball more. They struggled against Philly, and I'm a huge Philly fan. I love their defense. They're a great defense. I don't want to take anything away from them. But Tyreek Hill is simply the fastest player in the league in pads, and the Eagles have the worst cornerbacks besides the Saints and the Colts. So Andy Reid's probably watching and being like, wow, my arguably best player on offense got the ball 5 times. I think that needs to change. So I'm all in for Tyreek Hill. If you want to play him cash, if you want to play him in tournament, give him the exposure.
I like that. He was part of my games to take advantage of, so I definitely like that pick. I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I'm going to give you 2 different players because my first one I have already hit on him in 2 different sections. But a player that I'm taking, I'm going to give you 2, so don't worry. But a player I'm taking is Keenan Allen. I've discussed the 5 different reasons why I'm taking this player, and who I'm taking him over. I wouldn't fault you for playing both of these guys, but I'm actually going to play him over Kelvin Benjamin. I just don't know how Cam is going to do this weekend, so I would rather have a more sure thing with Keenan Allen instead of playing Kelvin Benjamin.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
And with his price tag of $6,700, yeah, you're going to save $500, but they're still in the ballpark of each other. That I'm going to try to find that money saving somewhere else, whether that be in a tight end, a cheaper tight end, or maybe I know something we haven't talked about, but a defense that I'm kind of looking at this week to be a cheap, good play defense is the Titans at $2,700. That's a place that you can save money to then pay up for Keenan Allen over at Kelvin Benjamin. But like I said, I wouldn't fault you if you want to play both of these guys, but if you told me who do you like better, I'm going to take Keenan Allen this week, even though a lot of people are projecting Kelvin Benjamin this week. I like Keenan Allen. Another guy I like, and this is really dependent on if the starting cornerback is playing, and that's Alshon Jeffrey with the Eagles.
Oh.
So if Janoris Jenkins is out, I think right now, as I'm on my computer now looking, he's still a game time decision for Sunday. But if he is out, I think Alshon Jeffrey becomes a really great play. I mean, he's a number 1 receiver. We've all seen Carson Wentz these last 2 games. He's looking like a pretty stud, solid quarterback. And I think Alshon Jeffrey, with Janoris Jenkins being out, I think he's going to be a great play. I know everybody's on Ertz. I'm on Ertz as well. But I do think Alshon Jeffrey's target share will increase if Janoris Jenkins is not able to play. If he is in the game, he's a guy that I definitely don't want. So this is really dependent on if Janoris Jenkins playing. And Alshon Jeffrey at $5,900, I think that's a good value play where you can get a cheaper wide receiver so you can start paying up at some of those other positions that we've talked about.
So are you sure you're a Texans fan and not an Eagles fan? Because
dude, I try to not be biased when I look at these things. But I don't like playing the Texans against Patriots. There's just something about when the Texans play the Patriots, except for that game when Will Fuller dropped that deep pass that would have put that game really close last year in the playoffs. I just don't like playing them against the Patriots. Belichick does something to Bill O'Brien. He figures them out, and we just don't look good when we play the Patriots. And especially this year, that's why I'm staying away. Without me getting back on a rant of the Texans, that's why I'm staying away from that game.
I'm sure we'll hear a lot about it next Tuesday.
But yeah, if I want to play it, I do like Hopkins. I do like Hopkins. He's going to get a lot of targets. That's one player. Like, let me not just be all over the Eagles. Let me take some Texans love. And I do like Hopkins this week with his target share. He's still pretty relatively cheap for a wide receiver 1 at $6,200. And I think that's in part due to that Belichick takes away your number 1 receiver or your number 1 target, whoever you like. And with Watson still kind of learning and he's obviously a rookie. So that's why he's still a cheap play. Maybe that's your play right there. If Janoris Jenkins is playing, instead of playing Jeffrey at the 5,900, you fade that and you play Hopkins at 6,200.
Well, I do like DeAndre because I think he leads the league in targets right now and air yards. So both those stats equal points. But I would honestly, I like Alshon Jeffrey pick a lot right there. If the Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins, is playing, don't mess with him. He is a top 5 corner, like hands down a top 5 corner. So do not mess with him. But if he is playing against Alshon Jeffries, I would just go to the next person below him, and that's Pryor, Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, I like that play.
Same price, 5,900 right there. But Alshon, that's a great play. Take note of that because he will not be someone high owned.
Oh no, pulling up ownership projections right here. Give me 1 second, and I'll try to find where he is. Yeah, he is sitting in the bottom half of that top 50 receiver list I was mentioning.
Yeah, so
he's not going to be a high owned guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very, very good spot to take advantage of. Real quick, what's Demaryius Thomas's projected ownership?
He's in the top quartile. I'd say he's probably he's the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's the 10th receiver.
10th receiver. Okay, that's fine. I still think you can take advantage of that too. We didn't talk a lot about that game, but I'm gonna have a lot of Demaryius Thomas for some points we were hitting on the other day. Bill's rushing attack is a lot better than they saw last week. So I think Trevor Siemian's going to have to get the ball out quicker, and I think Demaryius Thomas is just that perfect target. Yep, they're without their left tackle this week, so your left tackle's out. That's your best offensive lineman right there. You got to do a quick slant. Demaryius Thomas is perfect for that.
Yeah, and we know that he likes to take those plays for 50, 60, 70, 80 yards. So, I'm looking for some high upside of Demaryius Thomas. He should have a pretty high floor just with target volumes, and then I'm looking at a really high ceiling this week.
Oh yeah, he is guaranteed, just based off this year, he's guaranteed 8 targets a game. So that is a great spot to be in, especially with that high play advantage. So now those are definitely some players we want to take. Now some players that I want to leave, tell them to get home, go home, get on the bus. In this case, tell this person to get on his motorcycle, go back to that bar with that 17-year-old girl, and that's Big Ben. He is playing Chicago. You would think, let's take advantage of Chicago. But number one, Big Ben is not at home. Okay, Big Ben probably has the worst home and road splits in the league, like the worst. Okay, so stay away from him. I know that he's got Martavius, Antonio, and Le'Veon Bell, that whole offense against the Boo Boo Bears. But at 6,200, I would drop down 100 or pay up, or stay the same price and get Matthew Stafford or Kirk Cousins. Okay, stay away from Big Ben. He's just not playing. He hasn't played at an elite level since the beginning of 2016 before he got hurt. That's someone I definitely want to leave back at that bar with that girl whose age is questionable.
Yeah, I'll stay with the QB, and this is one of the higher priced QBs this week, and somebody that I'm really not looking to have any exposure to, and that's Drew Brees. We've talked about it. They're going up against Carolina, and Carolina's defense has looked great this year. I mean, they've looked like they're back to a few years ago to a really solid defense that I don't really want to take the other side on. I mean, if you look back to Drew Brees in Week 1 against Minnesota, which was a good defense, he only put up 15 points at a price tag of – he's actually at the same price tag of $7,200. I just don't see the value there. I'd rather, like you said, go look at somebody else, look at a Cousins, look at Carr. I mean, there's plenty of guys that are cheaper that I see a lot higher of a ceiling with a pretty similar floor to Drew Brees. And I just really don't want to bet against Carolina's defense right now, especially with – I don't think the game flow for this game is going to go how a lot of people are predicting. I think it's going to be a lower scored – grungy game. So I'm really not looking to have any exposure to Drew Brees this week.
Nope, stay off the Drew train. His away and home splits are very similar to Big Ben's as well.
Yeah, and they're at Carolina. So yeah, good point.
Yep. So with before we get going to the very fun part of our podcast, anybody else you want to highlight that you think our fans need to know about and take advantage of?
I think I jumped into him since I brought him up in the take it or leave it, but a guy I had written down here, that was Alshon Jeffrey. I talked about him that He's somebody I really liked, and that if Janoris Jenkins is out, he's somebody I want to play. But another guy I really like this week, we've talked about the game that we definitely want some action in the game, and we hit on one of the other receivers. But somebody I'm super high on, he's going to be my Tyreek Hill this week. If you remember from the previous podcast, I had Tyreek Hill in 85% of my lineups, and it turned out to burn me. I'm not saying I'm going to have this guy in 85% of my lineups, but this will probably be my #1 receiver of the week, and that's Golden Tate.
Ooh.
I think Matthew Stafford is slated to have a great game. I'm looking at a high-scoring 300-plus yards, 3 TD game. He might have a pick. That's okay. But I'm looking at Golden Tate to have a really solid – I'm hoping he gets that 100-yard bonus type of game, 8 receptions, 10 receptions, something like that. I know he's not the red zone guy, but just like Keenan Allen, he finds his value in the amount of receptions, the amount of targets, and the yardage he gets. So Golden Tate's somebody I'm really high on. He will be most likely my number one receiver of the week.
Golden Tate is a great that's a huge cash game play right there, and tournament play. He's gonna be used the exact same way Randall Cobb was used against the Falcons last week. And Randall Cobb was balling. He was the best receiver out there prior to that shoulder injury. So great pick right there. Somebody before we get moving on, someone I just saw in my notes and hadn't talked about it at all, really haven't talked about in any of our podcasts, that is a great person to Marquette King, Pat McAfee, punt this bitch. That is Alvin Kamara, running back for the Saints. Now I know their backfield situation is trippy. There's Adrian Peterson, but he's washed. Mark Ingram, he'll get the carries. Don't get me wrong. He's probably going to get the goal line carries. He might catch a few passes, but Kamara is the pass-catching back. He's the James White of the Saints. So in a game script, what looks like it's going to be some great defense, and Carolina possibly taking advantage of this piss-poor Saints defense. Kamara's going to see a lot of playing time, and he's already averaged, I believe it is, he's averaging 6.5 targets a game. Okay, so at $4,000, that is someone that you can throw in. If he gets you 8 catches for 70 yards, like that, 14 points, that's perfect. That's all you need for someone that's worth $4,000 right there.
Yeah, I like that pick. He's a guy that I have been looking at, and I would imagine another thing. I saw last week that he had very few attempts. You might have just mentioned that. But I expect that to pick up. I think he's a good play. I think he's one of those guys with Drew Brees. You kind of really never know who he's going to target that week. And with Carolina having a pretty good defense, I think a pass-catching back is just a perfect situation to find a lot of value against that team. So I do like that pick. Kind of similar to my Darren Sproles pick. Let's see how those two. I think that's a good one right there to compare next Tuesday.
Yep.
See who has a better game, Darren Sproles or Alvin Kamara. So let's make a note of that.
Yep, writing in my notes right now. All right. Now the fun part of the podcast. So hopefully you guys took notes of everything we just talked about. This next section, don't take any notes of this, okay? We're not recommending taking advantage of who we're about to talk about. But last week we did what was called the tequila tournament, and we just kind of all drafted a quarterback, running back, receiver, and whoever got first place, which is me, got a bottle of tequila. Thank you guys for the prize. I know Cody's not here, but I beat him out too. This week, all three of us are building up a lineup, but the catch is we got to stay $40,000 and under for salary. So normally DraftKings is $50,000. We're going to drop that down by $10,000. And I don't want to give my whole lineup yet because I actually threw this. I was so confident in this lineup. I threw it in a couple tournaments. Like, I'm that excited about it. But let me just give you all a little bit of taste of what I'm working at. So this is 40,000 and under, okay? I've got Kirk Cousins and Amari Cooper in this lineup.
I like that. I mean, I can't hate on that.
Like, this is – and I have Marvin Jones.
I actually have Marvin Jones as well in mine. My biggest players, just like your Cousins Cooper stack, I actually have Stafford and Demaryius Thomas in mine.
Oh, okay.
I was able to put both of those. In mine. I like this game. I think this is going to be really interesting. I will say I'm having a lot of trouble I'd say a lot. We've talked about a few of the players. I am having trouble finding some serious value on the running back at that cheap position. That's why one of the players I hit on earlier hard was Sproles, because I think that's a guy that you could have a lot of value. Playing this game is where what led me down the path of picking Darren Sproles. So just a spoiler, I did put him in my lineup.
Hey, that's a good pick. I mean, see, I put Alvin in my lineup, Kamara in my lineup.
Yeah. Oh, see, this is perfect. We get to compare head to head to see how these guys do.
Exactly. And this week it's called the Vodka for Victory tournament. So we got tequila last week, got vodka. We're not alcoholics, guys. Okay. Alcohol is just fun to bet with. All right, so don't think we're alcoholics. We all work out. Metcons, CrossFit, PRs, deadlifts.
Nobody's going to know what you're talking about because that's just us at work.
Oh, man. All right. So we don't know what Cody's picked, but I'm sure it's not as good as our team's, because he'd be here if it was. I'm going to say that to Cody.
I get it, man. He had to do his wifey duties, but I mean, I'm sitting here in Louisiana in my hotel room about to head back to the casino, but I had to take that moment to do this podcast.
Because the podcast is life.
Exactly.
DFS is life. And
I feel like I'm not gambling as hard with my money on DFS as I'm about to when I walk back into that casino.
Yep. I mean, you're probably going to make more money on DFS this week than you are at the casino.
Yeah, because I'm already down.
Hey, but just like our name of our podcast, it applies to gambling at the casino too.
Yeah.
There's always one more entry, one more hand, one more
one more hand, one more roll,
one more slot pool.
Yeah.
21. All right. Any last words, Kyle?
Oh man, appreciate the show. Great job today, man.
Hey, you too. Everybody, get your notes, get these cash game picks in, take advantage. Thank us on Tuesday. Hope y'all have an amazing Saturday and Sunday, and let's get this motherfucking money.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.